Hey, it's Free Talk Live, and it is the live Saturday edition of the program. You may take control of the airwaves. All you got to do is dial in toll-free. We're going to talk about taxes to start out the show tonight. Not only is the burden of taxes tremendously large on Americans today, but also the IRS says they just prefer to audit poor people. We'll get into all that here. And the toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE. That's toll-free 855-450-3733. Or you may call us on our Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. That is our Discord server. It's a 24/7 chat server. But during our live show, which is, of course, right now, 7 to 10 Eastern every day, you can call in that way, and you'll sound almost like you're sitting in the studio with us. It's Ian here.
And Mark.
So, Mark, we're going to start with you, because I've got one of these stories about taxes, but you had one about the total tax burden on Americans compared to what they earn. What is it that you wanted to share?
Right. So this is from cnsnews.com. Americans, it's basically
that's kind of a right-wing news source.
It is. Yeah, no doubt. The headline basically says it all. Americans spent more on taxes in 2018 than on food, clothing, and health care combined.
Okay, that's a lot.
Americans on average, this is Terrence P. Jeffrey here, Americans on average spent more on taxes in 2018 than they did on the basic necessities of food, clothing, and health care combined, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey. The survey's recently published Table R1 for 2018 lists average detailed expenditures of what the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, calls consumer units. Consumer units, says the BLS, include families, single persons living alone or sharing a household with others but who are financially independent, or two or more persons living together who share major expenditures. Got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically households.
Gotcha.
But you know, the problem with households is that a lot of people live with somebody that they aren't related to, and aren't in a family with, even whether that family is government recognized or not. In 2018, according to Table R1, American consumer units spent an average of $9,032 on federal income taxes, and like over $5,000 on Social Security, and a bit over $2,000 on state and local taxes, and then about the same on property taxes, which of course is a state and local tax,
right? And
another like $78 on other taxes. The combined payments the average American consumer unit made for these 5 categories of taxes was $18,617.
You said that was the average?
Yep.
18,000. Okay.
Right. 18,000.
18,600.
Yeah, 18,600. Let's go with that. At the same time, the average American consumer unit was, we just can't say households anymore, was paying these taxes. It was
sounds way more robotic now.
Yeah, oh yeah, much more robotic. Basically, when you combine the food, the health care, and clothing, it comes to $14,700.
Well, but Mark, look at all. I mean, yeah, you can complain about the taxes, but look at all the value that you're getting for your $10,000 plus $20,000 every single year. I mean, presuming it's a 2-person household, then you split it in half, right? You get roads. You get roads.
Roads are great.
You
no
get
doubt.
wars.
Well, I don't want wars.
You get police that'll kill innocent people.
Well, you know, it's not that I don't value the services that are provided, the monopoly security organization that in my given geographic area or whatever, but I think I could get my security services a little less I don't know. I just don't know. If I didn't have to pay for whatever the monopoly policing service is, and I'm not saying it doesn't provide a value, but there's no competition in the marketplace. We don't know. So, you know, yeah, police is the old standby for limited government people is cops, courts, roads, and soldiers. Right?
We've got the best judicial system in the entire world. I mean, it's so fast. Speedy. They will get right to your case.
I don't know what evidence there is for claiming that the United States criminal judicial system is of value. I don't know.
To anyone who's, I'm being facetious.
Yes, it's nuts.
To anyone who's actually ever been to court, you know the truth.
Right. The idea of the speedy trial is guaranteed in this nation is absolutely laughable.
It is.
It'll be 3 years before you get to trial.
Oh, don't worry. You can file a motion.
Right. While you sit in jail. Because they don't like to let you wander around out in the streets either. So,
Well, certainly not if you're poor. Because, if you got bail money, then you can usually get out of jail.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can.
In most cases.
Ask Epstein.
Well, I mean, he did get out of jail for a lot of the time when he was inside the jail because he was sentenced
That's
to
the first
13
go-around,
months.
But the second go-around.
Well, he killed himself. Who knows how the trial would have gone?
Well, it's not about the trial. It's about the
well,
trial
he allegedly killed himself. Maybe somebody else knocked him off. Who knows what the real story is?
Maybe he escaped to Mexico. We have no idea what really happened. Let's be serious here.
There are theories.
There's lots of theories, and I'd love to talk about. I love talking about Epstein because I just don't believe. Nobody believes what they're told on the Epstein thing. Anyway, you can choose to believe or not believe me here, but basically, taxes for the average American are $18,600 for the year, and food, clothing.
The average consumer unit.
Yeah, the consumer unit. I'm sorry. So that's a household. So that's food, clothing, and healthcare come to $14,700. So It's significant. You could add in several more things to this column and still have something less than taxes.
You could probably add in gasoline.
I mean,
my guess.
I'm getting a lot more for my food dollar, and there's a lot of competition in the food marketplace.
Sure.
There's a lot of grocery stores. There's
Not
a lot of farmers.
Profit margin either.
There's a lot of truckers, and there's a lot of everything that goes into getting food to me. So I know that I'm getting food at, among the best prices I'm going to be able to get it at because there's a lot of competition. Whereas when it comes to, you had said roads, well, if we leave it to the government to put roads, I mean, come on. Everybody knows that when the government builds a building, it's going to be 3 times the cost of when the rest of us build a building.
Yeah, if you didn't know that, you just weren't paying attention.
And that's just what happens. It's, sorry, there's no competition in the marketplace, so the costs go up. I don't know if it's the contractors padding the
that's
bids.
That's exactly what it is.
Could be that.
Absolutely, that's what it is. That's not speculation. I mean, that's true not just of contractors building roads or building buildings or whatever. It's true of anybody that gets a government contract. I mean, even one of our co-hosts, who's a libertarian, he runs a computer sales business online. He gets government deals, and you'd better believe he jacks up the rates. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know why.
You've got a client that basically won't say no. You've got a client that says, "Give us this. We'll pay whatever it costs."
They do have a lot of criteria that have to be met, and when you have to fill out all that extra paperwork,
there's paperwork. So there is more work involved. Sure.
Right. All that extra paperwork is more cost.
Yeah.
So
true. I'll give you that.
That's it. So going on here, the author says, I asked the BLM to confirm these numbers, which it did, while noting that the pensions and Social Security section of its Table R1 included 4 other types of payments that many people are not required to make or that do not go to the government, in addition to the average of $5,000 on Social Security taxes that 77% of respondents reported paying. You asked us to verify the amounts of the total taxes and expenditures on food, apparel, services, and health care, said BLS, based on Table R1, which they keep referring to here for 2018. Your definition of food, apparel, health care matches the BLS's definition and the total dollars. Your dollars amounts for federal, state, and local income taxes and for property taxes are correct, as is the amount of Social Security.
Who are
deduction.
they saying this to? I'm sorry, I missed
the author.
Oh, okay.
He's just saying I double-checked.
Questions.
Okay. Like there's this chart that says that Americans spend more on taxes than they do on food, health care, and clothing combined, and a bunch more.
Look, Mark, this is the price that we pay for a civilized society.
I guess it is. That's all you can claim, because the problem is with a claim like that is it's not scientific. In a scientific claim, you would be able to compare. Like, what is it like without this monopoly organization that forces you to pay for a bunch of overpriced stuff and then is constantly rapaciously finding new things that it can mess up further, or without it?
Do you think you're getting a good value here? The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Are you happy about all these taxes? 855-450-3733. You can bring up whatever's on your mind as well. It is. Hey, it's Free Talk Live, and it's the live Saturday edition of the program. You're invited to join us here if you want to. We're talking taxes, everybody's favorite topic, because, you know, you get such a good deal out of the government, right? I mean, now Trump's in charge. That makes everything better. Does it make it feel better when, you know, if you're a Trump fan, when you hear the statistics, the news here, Mark, that you gave out in the first segment, and that is that combining a bunch of American, you know, costs of living together, and can you run down what the categories were that they added up? That combining these things, cost of, what was it, housing?
Yeah, it's housing,
food,
healthcare,
and healthcare.
You're right, food, clothing, healthcare, not housing.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Combined.
So
and then compare that to taxes.
Yeah.
And the taxes come out significantly higher than food, clothing, and healthcare combined.
Yeah, it was like $18,600 for the tax burden. And this is not on the individual. This is on what they call a consumer unit,
which is basically a household.
Some sort of classification of people living together,
right.
Sharing expenses.
The difference between a consumer unit and a household is that if you live with roommates, you're considered an individual consumer unit.
Mm-hmm.
If you live with a live-in lover, or whatever term we wish to use for that, then you and that other person are a consumer unit together.
I see. And so it was compared to like $14,000 and change on the items added up, compared to $18,600 in taxes.
Right.
And the taxes included state, local, and federal added together.
Sure. I mean, you know, what difference does it make to you which monopoly organization claims the taxes from you?
So if you want to comment, you're certainly welcome to join us here. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. You know, one of the things we talk about here on Free Talk Live to get out of, you know, financial liability to the government is to convert your value that you have into alternatives besides the government dollar, besides the government fiat currency, and gold is certainly an option to do that.
Well, it can be a vehicle. I don't think that most people would recommend it who are in the gold profession, but there are taxes. If you decide to sell your gold, you're supposed to pay taxes on that.
Yeah, well, you'd be a sucker if you told the government about selling your gold.
I understand how you feel, and I concur with you.
I mean, as long as you don't tell them, then what business is it of theirs?
Agreed. And another thing that's to consider as far as gold right now is that it's had a pretty good quarter.
Yeah.
Things have gone up because, well, not everybody thinks the economy is going to be great going on into the next year. So McIlvaney ICA has a free report that you can download if you'd like to learn more about investing in precious metals. It's called The 6 Advantages of Adding Precious Metals to an IRA and How You Can Double Your Ounces. You can get it online at icagoldsilver.com. They've been around for a long time, since 1972. They were one of the pioneers in making it so the gold was legal. And they'll give you a free portfolio review. Go to icagoldsilver.com. It's icagoldsilver.com, or you can call their telephone number 800-525-9556, icagoldsilver.com.
All right, so you can bring up anything that you want. Do we pretty much tell that story, Mark? Was there more that you wanted to share?
No.
So the toll-free number again is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. And one thing you can be sure of when it comes to costs like what we're discussing here is that they're going to go up over time. Because remember, when you pay the cost of, what was it, clothing, food and healthcare. Remember, you as the consumer are also paying all of the taxes and all of the regulatory costs for every company that you're doing business with. So the grocery store, well, what does it take to get that, package of meat or veggies or whatever it is you're buying to the grocery store? It takes a man with a truck and a whole lot of gas. And of course, what's a good chunk of gas? Taxes.
Yep, good chunk of the gasoline is taxes. They say that food and necessities aren't taxed, but that's just sales tax.
So what about the warehouse?
Right,
that is paying electricity and the taxes.
What about the corporate taxes that Birdseye pays?
What's that? A manufacturer?
Birdseye is they make frozen foods.
Okay,
they're known for frozen foods.
All of these companies are paying taxes: corporate taxes, gas taxes. land taxes on the the warehouse, the grocery stores, the shipping centers.
The farmers are paying property tax.
Right. So there's taxes all along the way. And it would be very hard to actually calculate. I'm sure somebody can do it. Some economist or whatever is probably taking the time to figure out, what the tax burden is on a pound of meat. But,
I've
it'd be
seen
difficult.
the numbers that the tax and regulatory burden combined is about 70 cents out of every dollar.
Just generally on any old purchase,
right? And people never see that. They'll never accept it. When you say 70 cents out of every dollar is tax and regulation, we need regulation because people would do bad things. And I'm not claiming that they wouldn't, and that the marketplace should have some level of certification for people, treating the environment correctly and all that stuff. However, what you need to understand is what monopoly organizations are known for two things. They're known for high prices and bad customer service.
Yeah,
and that's what the government is. It's a monopoly organization. It is the only monopoly organization.
They have a monopoly on violence.
You can't name a monopoly that the government that exists in the marketplace without a government-granted license to do business.
Yep.
So, for instance, if you can only get your power from one company, that is a government granted monopoly.
That's right, because you can't just go out and set up another power plant because the government goons will come with guns and they'll shut you down.
Well, these days now different people can sell power and you can get a different name on the bill.
Sure,
basically.
if you ask for permission from the government first.
Sure.
If they say yes, but you got to grease the right palms in order for that to happen, you're going to have a whole lot of money. It's not like you could just get one of those little mini nuclear reactors, pop it on your land. I know they're developing these things. I've heard about them.
They're still in the thorium salt reactors. So, like nuclear reactor scares the bejesus out of people when you say that. So thorium salt reactors a better terminology, or meltdown proof.
Hey, that's a good one.
Meltdown proof reactor is a better term.
But they're supposedly very small, and you can
run a neighborhood, not a property, on something like that.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
if you want to run your own property, you can get some. Solar panels.
Right. No, that's what I'm talking about. Is this? I've heard about these little. I've heard they're relatively small. Like I don't know how big, but a small box or something like that.
I think you could. I mean, the ones I've heard about are like the size of a large refrigerator.
Yeah. That's not too big, right? I got a generator outside that's not much smaller than a refrigerator. It just lays down on the ground. So
and it doesn't produce power most of the time.
That's true. And so, you could get one of those things and start hooking up your neighbors. But what do you think's going to happen when the government catches wind that you're, distributing power without a license, without permission? They're going to send men with guns to stop you. That's what they do.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah. So, but again, to come back to the idea that within the prices of all these things, so you talked about the $14,000 that people are spending on food and that they're spending on
clothing
and healthcare. That especially in healthcare, you want to talk about a tremendous regulatory burden. Because remember, it's not just about the tax. It's about the regulations that those companies have to the hoops that they have to jump through, the tremendous burden of paperwork put on healthcare
If you're
companies.
worried about poor people, driving prices down helps poor people. If you're worried about innovation, well, regulation hinders innovation.
It's true. The toll-free number here tonight, 855-450-FREE. Are there people out there that just smile when they hear about a large tax burden, that feel good about that?
People without jobs.
855-450-3733. Plus, the IRS says it's easier to go after poor people. I want to tell you about my favorite cryptocurrency wallet, Edge Wallet, at edge.app. Edge is the wallet I use more than any other, and that was true long before Edge Wallet became a sponsor of Free Talk Live. Edge Wallet allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold your cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS, and you can download it via the Play or App Store or via Edge Wallet's website, edge.app. Secure your freedom with Edge Wallet. It's Free Talk Live. You may dial toll-free if you want to get on the radio, talk about whatever's on your mind. It doesn't have to be about taxes. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Although that's where we started out here tonight with you. It's Ian.
And Mark.
855-450-3733. Or call us on our Discord on-air call-in lines, which sound amazingly good compared to telephones. Now, you do have to jump through a couple hoops in order to get onto our Discord server. It's a chat server. So, you got to have a username. You got to have a password. And then you'll get in You just go to download the Discord app. There's one for pretty much every phone out there, laptops, desktop computers. So it's cross-platform, as they call it. You can have Discord in more than one place. So I do. I've got it on my phone. It's on my laptop as well. Plus here at the studio computer. So we've always got that in front of us. And there are call-in line rooms. It's just a chat server. It's up 24 hours a day. But the call-in line rooms are active, or they, in theory, could be. Right now, there's no one there. But during the live show, if you call into the call-in line rooms, we will join you in there, and then you'll sound almost like you're sitting here with us. So head over to grab the Discord app, and then once you get that set up with your account, then you just go to your web browser and type in discord.lrn.fm. Press enter, and it'll pop you right into our server. It's super easy to do. And once you have Discord and it's all set up, then calling from that point in the future, it's actually easier than calling on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have to dial any numbers. You just click.
You're all set up.
And you join the room, and that's it. And there's another reason to join our Discord server, and that is the Discord tip bot that's in there. There's actually a little cryptocurrency tipping bot. Now, I have to preface this with a warning. We don't know who the programmer is behind this tip bot. It could be a gigantic exit scam, but it's a lot of fun.
It's working right now.
People are having a good time with the bot. So you can tip people that are in the chat room. You can tip the hosts of the show. The host can tip the people in the chat room. So it's fun. It's fun stuff. Go to discord.lrn.fm. And don't tell the IRS about it, okay? So we've been talking about taxes here and the tremendous tax burden that Americans have today. That it's not going down. That's not something that you're going to see reduce over time. Yeah, I know people think Trump is doing them a favor or whatever, but I think I heard that tax revenues were up under the Trump administration, that they're collecting more in taxes. And so, look, he's not going to reduce the size of government. I'm sorry. It's been almost 4 years now, not quite, 3 years of Donald Trump. He's not going to reduce the size of government. He doesn't need to get into a second term. He's got to have the support of Congress. He hasn't even proposed anything of any significant reduction. Yeah, he's picked at a few regulations here or there. That's good. I'll give him credit for that. Yeah,
the debt hasn't gone up significantly under Trump at this point. That doesn't mean that it couldn't in the future, but it basically doubled under Bush, doubled under Obama. If it doubled under Trump, then it would be $40 trillion when he left the office. It's 20.
You mean after 8 years?
After 8 years. It's 22 trillion at this point. So, I mean, holding steady is an accomplishment, but at the same time, I don't think anybody who's for limited government really even at this point, they don't even believe anymore.
So you consider adding $2 trillion in federal debt to be holding steady?
That's a hell of a lot better than has been done in the past.
Well, I don't know. That doesn't impress me. I'm sorry.
I'm not claiming it's going to get my vote. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
It really depends on who the libertarians put up as to whether or not I'd vote for Trump or not. But Trump still has the opportunity to get my vote. All he has to do is pardon
Ross Ulbricht,
Julian Assange.
Oh, you want more than one pardon?
Or Ed Snowden.
Okay. One of the three.
Any one of those three.
Yeah.
I would like to see Ross Ulbricht would be my favorite. That's what I said initially. But I'll take any one of those three.
Well, yeah, Ross is the only one who's actually in an American prison right now.
At this point, Trump better have better make sure he's talking to Pence about pardoning Trump.
Oh, you think that the impeachment's going to actually go through?
They've got some much better evidence than they had for any of the other crap they've gone after him for.
I'm sorry. Look, I mean, I'm a critic of all the presidents, so I'll be clear.
I'm not claiming he deserves
Yeah,
anything.
What is it that the evidence is for? That he asked a politician for a favor?
Yep, and withheld something in exchange for basically, a quid pro quo.
Oh, did he? Okay, because I had not heard that allegation.
The allegation is that there was a quid pro quo, and
that's a no-no.
I guess.
To do. Yeah, but the idea that the Senate's going to convict him seems pretty slim.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so I would not put money on that particular thing coming to pass.
I'd still be talking to Pence. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Right.
How about you and the wife go to dinner? You and the wife and I go to dinner. How about that?
So if you want to join us here, you can do that. On the way, we're going to get into the story about the IRS since we're talking about taxes. This is actually coming from ProPublica.org. The IRS saying that it is easier to go after poor people rather than the wealthy. Paul Keel reporting that the IRS audits the working poor at about the same rate as the wealthiest 1%. In response to questions from a U.S. senator, they have acknowledged that it's true, but they profess that they can't change anything unless they're given more money. ProPublica reported the disproportionate audit focus on lower-income families in April. Lawmakers confronted IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig about the emphasis, citing Our Stories, that is ProPublica's, and Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon asked Rettig for a plan to fix the imbalance. Rettig readily agreed. Last month, he replied with a report, but said the IRS has no plan and won't have one until Congress agrees to restore the funding that it slashed from the agency over the past 9 years, something lawmakers have shown little inclination to do. Well, that's actually surprising that Congress would actually slash funding from the IRS. I mean, even during the Obama administration, apparently, over the last 9 years. I'm glad to hear that that's the case. I would like to encourage them to just go ahead and slash them entirely. Please, just abolish the entire IRS. I understand that they need it to collect money to pay off the interest on the federal debt, because as I understand it, the tax money from that's collected by the IRS actually doesn't do anything else. That it simply exists for the purpose of paying off interest.
It's really close to that.
Yeah.
And consider that the principles at the principle to the United States debt has been around so long that nobody even talks about going after the debt. So
right, they can barely chew around the edges on the interest, and that's about it, right?
I mean, if you think about this, let's say that it's absolutely true that Andrew Jackson did pay off the debt. That's the last time it was paid off. All right?
And what was he, like the second president or something like that?
He wasn't the second, no, but he was in the single digits, I believe.
Okay.
So he paid it off. That means that well before the Civil War, because Jackson was a general in the War of 1812, and then between
we're over 200 years since that's happened.
Maybe the 1830s or something. He was the president. I'd have to look it up. He he paid it off then. So basically, the debt in the Civil War, whatever that is still being we're still being taxed on that. It's ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah,
and think about this. Southerners, the people who lost the war, are being forced to pay it. People who immigrated here in the 1880s, after the Civil War was over, they're being forced to pay it.
Sure.
And here's what's even more despicable. This is absolutely despicable. Everybody would agree that saying, "Oh, I'm not going to pay for that. I'm going to have my grandchildren pay for that." That's despicable behavior.
Yeah, for sure.
That is despicable behavior.
Well, that's what you expect from the government.
But that's what you get every single time you say, "I want a government program to handle this." And I don't care whether it's a war with a Customs and Border Patrol, health care, whatever it is. You're saying, don't worry about it. My grandchildren will pay for it. My kid doesn't owe your debt. Pay your own debts.
Well, and when you say you're talking about the federal government.
No, I'm talking about the people advocate for more government programs without a cut in spending at the very least. Which is the Republicans and the Democrats. They all have their favorite programs. The government grew under Reagan, it grew under Clinton, it grew under Bush, both of them, and grew under Obama. I mean, nobody here is without a blemish.
Absolutely. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, but if you don't pay them, you get to go to a prison cell. They're going to send intimidating men and women with guns after you, and they will extract it from you by force if necessary. Of course, don't forget they'll also print money, too, and that's a secret tax, where you end up paying the price without even realizing it. More coming up here. This is... It is Free Talk Live Saturday edition of the show. Open phones is always here. The toll-free number, 855-450-FREE. You may call in about anything that is on your mind. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Mark.
Although we're talking taxes, specifically right now, the IRS admitting that, they do a lot of audits on poor people compared to the wealthiest 1%. And it'd be harder if they had to do more audits on the wealthy. They would like to, but they need some more funding. They're going to need to restore the funding that apparently has been cut, which is was a surprise for me to find out. The IRS has had their some funding cut from their budget over the
nobody
last 9
likes
years.
them.
Well, I mean, there's got to be somebody that likes them. I mean, I bet their family members probably like them. Like the individual IRS employees. They might be loved by their own family
No, I'm not
members.
talking about the people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about it's sort of no one among us is as dumb as all of us together, right? It's like a board. Any one of the people who's on any given board is probably a good person that makes good decisions in their life. But once they get on a board, they're slow. They make terrible decisions. They're not responsible for them, and that's kind of what goes on with the IRS. When you're in your off time, you're just Jim Jones. But when you're working for the IRS, then you're an IRS agent.
Yeah.
The IRS agent, nobody likes the IRS agent.
I got to say, if I did have one in my family, I would not respect that person. I can respect somebody who does like a government job that should exist in the marketplace. Like if you're the snowplow guy in Keene, New Hampshire, God has blessed you, man. Thank you. You would be in
Somebody
demand.
picks up trash, firemen.
Yeah, right. Those are jobs where, those jobs would exist in the absence of a coercive monopoly, which we were discussing how the government's a monopoly earlier. Those jobs would still exist. They'd probably get a little bit, whether they get better pay or not, the odds are they'd be happier at work. Like a lot of private school teachers, for instance, they don't get paid as much as the government school teachers do, but they're happier from what I understand. So, a lot of cases I got respect for those folks, but there's really nothing to respect about somebody who works for the IRS. I mean, I don't care what you do, whether you're answering phones for the IRS or whether you're an auditor or whether you're an administrator or whatever, you are part of one of the most invasive and outrageous bureaucracies on the planet, and you should be ashamed of yourself. So I got no respect for that. But according to the story here at ProPublica.org, the IRS admits that auditing poor taxpayers is a lot easier. They use relatively low-level employees to audit returns for low-income taxpayers who claimed the Earned Income Tax Credit. The audits, of which there were about 380,000 last year, accounting for 39% of the total number of audits the IRS conducted, are done by mail, and they don't take too much staff time either. They are, quote, the most efficient use of available IRS examination resources, unquote, according to the report from the head IRS administrator. On the other hand, auditing the rich is much harder. It takes senior auditors hours upon hours to complete an exam.
Plus, there's lawyers to deal with, and nobody likes dealing with lawyers, including IRS agents.
Right, so beyond the complexity of a rich person's, all their money and investments and all that, but they also will, probably more likely to fight an audit. What's more, the letter says that, quote, the rate of attrition is significantly higher among these more experienced examiners. As a result, the budget cuts have hit this part of the IRS particularly hard. For now, they say, while the IRS agrees that auditing more wealthy taxpayers would be a good idea, without adequate funding, there's nothing it can do. Quote, Congress must fund, and the IRS must hire and train appropriate numbers of auditors to have appropriately balanced coverage across all income levels, they say. Since 2011, Republicans in Congress have driven cuts to the IRS enforcement budget. It's more than a quarter lower than it was in 2010, after adjusting for inflation. Well, let's keep cutting that. Just, slice it back another half. How about just slice it back 100% while you're at it? Shut down the entire building. I like Harry Brown's proposal, the Libertarian presidential candidate in 1996 and 2000. His proposal was to demolish the IRS building, like take a wrecking ball to it, and then sell the rubble to pay down the national debt.
I'd be happy to buy a big chunk of the IRS building. If an IRS, this is something I don't understand about audits. I have never been audited.
Yeah, that's
the truth. But when they demand to see whatever it is your items are that show, the things that it shows, like, well, we want to see your receipts for such and such.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, this is still the Constitution's still the highest law in the land, supposedly, and that means that I don't have to testify against myself, supposedly.
Sure.
Which means that I don't know. Why do I have to show this to you?
I don't know. I guess they'll tax you more or something? Like, what happens to somebody that tells the IRS, pound sand?
How can they tell you how can they tax you more if they don't have? I mean, if you're claiming deductions,
they will
against
make
the
an
information
estimate.
That they have,
won't they?
Sure, they'll make an estimate. But how do they do?
They'll estimate high.
They can't estimate what I'm earning.
I don't
if
know.
they don't know.
That's a good question.
They have
good
documentation on what I earn, and then I report extra things to them.
Yeah, you should ask Melanie about that. She's a former co-host of ours who is a tax accountant, so she might know, from experience what they'll do in that circumstance.
But that's the thing about going after the rich is that they're not going to just give you the information that you've asked for. They're going to make it very difficult.
Well, and also, so beyond you not, what if you don't have the information to even hand over to them in the
right.
first place?
I mean, am I really obligated to hold all this stuff?
Well, and you had also asked a good question in the past about the amount of time, for instance, that it takes to just put together just filing the taxes, let alone like an audit, and how much time that would take.
It could take 40. It has taken my wife 40 hours.
That's a whole work week.
That's a work week. 51 out of the 52 work weeks you can get per year.
Right. She could have spent that time with you, your son, doing things that she enjoys doing, but instead she had to jump through a bunch of federal government hoops. And the point that you had touched on, and I thought that you were going to here just a moment ago, was it's also there's a constitutional prohibition on slavery.
Right.
So slavery would be unpaid labor.
Says no involuntary servitude.
Yeah.
And look, anytime I'm filling out a tax form, it's involuntary servitude.
They're not paying you to do it.
They're not paying you to do it.
And they didn't ask you nicely. It's not like you volunteered into that. They're threatening you with violence, like a man with a whip and a horseback behind you, basically.
Honestly, I believe that stands true for the draft, too, and jury duty.
Well, we got a jury duty story coming up.
How can they tell me to do any of these things involuntarily? Now, sure, you give me the opportunity to go to a jury, I'm liable to go and sit on the jury.
Now, maybe they're going to say, I'm just going to speculate here, and if you want to call in, you're welcome to join us on this. If you're an accountant or you've been through an audit or you've refused an audit, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. What are they going to do about it? Maybe they're going to claim, well, look, Mr. Taxpayer, you signed this form last year. I mean, I see your signature here on this form saying that these are your taxes and that you are swearing under a penalty of perjury and that you agree to follow our rules. When you sign our forms, you're consenting. You're agreeing.
Consenting to what?
To all the tomes of the tax law.
This.
The tax law. Hey, you haven't read them? Whoa. You haven't read all the tax tomes out there? All the however many.
It would take me 4 lifetimes to read the federal laws that pertain to me.
Well, no, not all the federal laws, just the tax code. We're the IRS.
Should I not have to read the federal code too? Wait,
we're not worried about that.
Are you telling me, Mr. IRS agent, you have not read all of the federal laws?
Well, I mean, I don't have to answer your question, sir.
Well, then I don't have to answer yours. Goodbye and good day, sir.
But, I mean, that's my only theory, is that you've signed their forms.
By the way, the last time I went before a board that was deciding taxes for me, they literally said to me, we don't have to answer your questions.
I was there. There's video of it.
We don't have to answer your questions, but how am I going to know how to present to you what you want to see if you don't tell me what it is?
We don't want to see it.
They don't want to see it
away.
Because they don't want me to not be able to, deduct something from the taxes.
Right. You're referring to the local property tax board here in Keene, New Hampshire, that denied the Shire Free Church, which is our church, its tax exemption on some property, and did it 3 years in a row, I think.
Yeah, I've stopped going.
Yeah,
got better things to do with my time.
It's true.
And that's what they were hoping for. That's what they always hope for. They're just there to waste your time. If they waste enough of your time, you'll give them your money and make them go away. That's the whole shtick. That is the government in a nutshell. The reason you pay your taxes is because you don't want the trouble from not paying them.
Let's talk about the draft coming up here in just a moment, Mark. You have a story about the other draft. Yeah, people are saying, what draft? We don't have a draft in the United States.
Got a draft board.
Well, the draft board still exists. That's the military draft board. But I'm talking about the jury draft. And one man went to jail because he missed jury duty. Apparently. You're going to tell us about that coming up here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Hour 2.
Business owners. You want more customers? Accept cryptocurrencies. There's people all around you just waiting to spend money at your store. If only you would take it. I know, you've been waiting till someone else makes it easy. Well, good news. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com adds Bitcoin to your point of sale, totally free. Use the same equipment you already have, now with Bitcoin. And unlike credit cards, there's no fees. Let the guys at HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com bring new customers to your store. HelpMeTakeBitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. Take control of the airwaves on this live Saturday edition. Our toll-free number for you is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm. You can join us there, join our chatters there. The Discord rooms are live during our show, but the Discord server is available 24/7 for people to interact with one another. With you tonight, by the way, it's Ian.
And Mark.
Coming up, can an orangutan have human rights? A court in Argentina decided, it was like 5 years ago, actually. It was 2014 when they decided that Sandra, the orangutan, does have human rights. And now that story's back in the news because Sandra's moving to the United States. What does that mean? Does it mean she's going to retain the rights that she was granted in Argentina? And what does it even mean for an orangutan to have human rights? I think we should discuss that coming up here. But since that's court-related, we got another court-related story first, Mark. Jury duty. And this is something that a lot of people in the United States have to deal with. Every year or few years, they'll get a notice in the mail saying that they've been called for jury duty.
I haven't had one in 20 years.
It's been almost that long for me. It was Florida when I was in Florida last time, so probably about 15 years, I would say, for me since I've had one. And that was the only one I ever had, was just that one down in Florida. And they didn't pick me because, well, I'm a libertarian, and they generally don't want people who know about rights and freedom to be on juries. And they will ask you questions. You know, they gave you the voir dire form where you got to fill out information about yourself.
Especially not a criminal jury. I mean, a civil jury, basically, a civil jury should have been decided between arbitrators in the first place. Mm-hmm. Like, government has no business setting up their arbitration system and making themselves a monopoly in that area. They're bad at it. They're slow.
Well, they're not. I mean, there are arbitrators, Mark. The American Arbitration Association does exist, and you'll find them referenced in many corporate contracts and terms of service. So, I mean, there are alternatives, I would say, to that. And in fact,
there are.
The civil court system does.
Why is there a civil court system?
Because it's always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
And they got jobs, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep them. I mean, if somebody proposed to get rid of the courts,
and yet it takes 3 years to get your case heard in criminal court. I mean, those judges that sit on those civil cases could be popped over to criminal and cut that in half.
They could. But either way, whether it's criminal or civil, Mark, they still are going to have the jury system, and they're still going to need warm bodies to sit on those juries. And the only way that they have to do that is through the jury selection process, which involves the threat of violence. Now, most people don't see that.
It doesn't have to. So take a look, for instance, at we used to demand that young men go to work for the military for a certain period of time, or at least be obligated for the draft or whatever. It was that way
and
for
that's wrong.
Couple hundred years in the United States.
And thank goodness it's not that way anymore.
Agreed.
Because
you're not going to have me arguing about that.
Yeah.
But some economists like Milton Friedman came out and said, "Hey, feds, this is stupid. You could just pay the soldiers more, and you wouldn't have to spend all the money trying to make sure people show up for a poorly paid job."
Right.
$21 a day, once a month.
Let's put weapons in the hands of people that don't want them, that don't want to be there. That's a great plan.
And that's what they're doing with juries, except the weapons part. They're forcing them to be there. Pay somebody to be there. As a matter of fact, why have juries at all? Most countries have a panel of 3 judges.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, the idea behind the jury, of course, is that these are supposed to be your peers.
Sure, that it's a government of the people, and I think that there's an argument for that. However, what it is a government of a bunch of ignorant people. So
True.
If I'm sitting on some kind of case regarding, there was the one between Apple and Samsung about who stole what from whom, and this phone looks too much like that phone.
Oh, the square rounded edge phone or whatever,
square rounded edge phone thing, and all that stuff. Well, why were a bunch of normal people sitting on a jury
and pulled from their lives for however long the case lasts? You can't go to work if you have to go to this dumb case.
They should have had legal experts and technical experts and a bunch of things on there. There's not a jury of their peers.
Well, but look, from a criminal aspect, I can understand why the jury, in theory, was a good idea. It hasn't worked out so great, but the idea was that the jury was supposed to be the final check on an out-of-control government, that it was, the other one of the columns, if you will.
Most of the people in a jury stand up and cheer for an out-of-control government.
Sadly, that's true. The jury system does tend to recruit people who love their government and, don't see the government as having done anything wrong. But that has more to do with government programming and government running the schools and the media, which is, of course, influenced heavily by the media.
Yep.
And government does control a lot of the media through the FCC. But so people are brainwashed, basically. But the idea was if the government gang creates some sort of just absolutely outrageous law, say slavery or something like that, or prohibition, let's say prohibition of cannabis, that the jury could be brought in, that they could see clearly that this is a travesty, that what's happening to whoever the defendant is wrong. Yeah, he did have a pound of marijuana, but he was selling it to adults, and they all, consented, and half of the people on the jury probably smoked pot when they were growing up, and so maybe they could see through the propaganda. Maybe they could see through the laws. We've got laws. It's a nation of laws. Well, no, it's a nation of men who threaten violence against peaceful people.
But it's not like cases even go to juries.
That's another problem.
Far fewer. Like 1 out of 1,000 cases might go to a jury.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
Most of them are dropped or pled out.
So what you're pointing out is not only are juries barely, do they barely happen, but when they do happen, the jurors themselves are pretty brainwashed, and they certainly don't know anything about jury nullification, which is, of course, your right as a jury or a juror to decide a case based on your opinion, based on your feelings, based on whether or not you think the law itself is good.
Americans used to have a much more skeptical sense about their government. Mm-hmm. Now that we've all become very imbued with this idea that, this person does this thing and this person does that thing. Division of labor is what this is called in economics. The division of labor, these people are experts and we're going to leave them to their business. Well, yeah, they're experts, I guess, as much. But, don't forget the public defendant that's standing the opposite of the prosecutor. He's an expert, too, I guess. Mm-hmm. He works for the government. So, why not just believe what he says? None of this makes any sense.
If you want to share your thoughts on jury duty in general, because we haven't even gotten into the story yet that prompted this discussion, our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. So, Mark, what is the latest news when it comes to juries?
Out of Fox32Chicago.com, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, after the familiar nightmare about oversleeping and missing a final exam or a big job interview, waking up usually brings relief. But for 21-year-old, for a 21-year-old male here, I don't even think there's
DeAndre Somerville.
Yeah. I was afraid that might give away a little something about what's going on here, what I think might be going on.
Okay.
The nightmare came after he actually overslept for jury service in a Florida courtroom. A judge later punished him with a 10-day jail sentence.
Whoa!
A judge sentenced Somerville to jail time plus 1 year on probation and
a year probation.
I'm not done. 150 hours of community service.
Oh my God!
150 hours.
It's insane. For missing, for sleeping through your alarm clock.
Right.
Listen, this is jury duty, Mark. It's one of the most important duties of any person in the United States, and this man is shirking his duty. He should have set 5 alarms. He should have taken this seriously, and we're going to teach him a lesson.
Well, The biggest argument I think against jury duty is the 13th Amendment, the United States Constitution, the highest law in the land. You may think, the individual listening to me, may think that a person has a responsibility to serve their government or serve their community, to serve whatever, but the 13th Amendment says no involuntary servitude. And
well, you volunteered when you signed up for your voter registration. You volunteered when you signed up for your driver's license.
That's right. I want to vote and I want to drive, so I'm volunteered for something.
That's how you get it. That's how you get on the jury list. 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. It's Free Talk Live. Live Saturday edition of the program. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. With you in the studio tonight, Ian.
And Mark.
And I want to make sure you know about local.bitcoin.com. It is a global trading platform to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash, and there are dozens of payment methods that can be used for this. And it's also a private platform. And what I mean by that is you don't have to actually show identification to the site itself in order to create an account, unlike their competition, which has been cracking down recently on what they call know your customer requirements. Local Bitcoin or local.bitcoin.com doesn't have those requirements because they don't hold your Bitcoin Cash at any point. It's all done through smart contracts. The trades are done that way, which means they're non-custodial, which means if they don't have your funds, they don't have to ask you about them, which I think is really cool. And they also encrypt communications between buyers and sellers on the platform. So go to local.bitcoin.com and get started trading Bitcoin Cash at local.bitcoin.com. Plus, you can just go to bitcoin.com any old time you want if you're new to cryptocurrency and you want to learn about some of the basics. It's a good place to get started.
They're getting started section right there at the top. Very valuable.
No doubt.
You can't say, I don't understand this Bitcoin thing anymore after you go to the getting started part.
So we've been talking about jury duty and one man sent to jail for 10 days plus a year's probation. That's insane.
Plus 150 hours community service. For
simply sleeping in and missing his jury selection date. We'll get into that coming up here in a moment. We can talk more about that particular case. But if you want to comment, you're welcome to do that. Let's go straight to the phones, to the fun. James is in Charleston, West Virginia, listening to WVTS. Go ahead, James.
Hey, guys.
Hey, welcome.
I found the easiest way to avoid jury duty, if you want to, even though I never wanted to avoid jury duty, but I managed to all my life since 1968 when I was 18 years old. And I live in a town, it's the capital city. We have about 50,000 people, so it's not that big a city. But make yourself known, especially at an early age. Write lots of letters to the editor if you still have a newspaper in your area. Let people know you have opinions, and probably they're opinions they don't agree with. And do that for a number of years, and then go on the Oprah Winfrey Show, as I did twice, and really piss people off. And then
what did you go on the Oprah? Hold on, what did you go on the Oprah?
I can't. Well, let's just say it was not politically correct. Okay. And then I started a radio talk show for 5 years, so they would never, in a million years, ever put me on any kind of jury.
So wait, did they even bother to send you the selection notice, or did they just your name came up and they're like, yeah, don't send that to him?
Well, I don't know. I've never been contacted.
The same thing's true of me. The same thing's true.
Same thing's true of me.
Yeah, I've lived in Keene, New Hampshire for 13 years. I have been registered to vote, and I didn't have a driver's license in New Hampshire the whole time.
The name you use on air is the name that's on your driver's license. The name I use on air is not on my driver's license, so they'd have to have a little more foreknowledge here. But it's a small town.
But here's the thing. I go to every jury selection because I do jury outreach. So I see the people who are coming in every month. Now, some months they don't do them here because there's, as you pointed out, Mark, most people don't take a case to trial. So some months there's literally no jury trials. But I still go out there and, if there are people, I hand them information. And I will come across people who will tell me that they're back that they've come back. It's like 2 or 3 years later, and they've been cycled through again. So I know people who have gone to jury duty more than once.
That's crazy.
In the time frame that I have never been called for jury duty. So I think the same thing's happening.
That's suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't mind going and serving on a jury, but there's no way that they'll ever call me because I'm too well known, and I'm strongly opinionated, and they know that. And
why do you think it is? I'm not questioning this at all. Why do you think it is that they don't want somebody that already has an opinion, that has talked about it? Because, I mean, presumably they do want people that have opinions on juries, right? I mean, that's what the whole purpose of a jury is to have somebody.
One of the biggest problems is they want the dumbest, stupidest people they can find,
right.
People who never listen to radio, people who never read a newspaper, people who never get on the Internet to see what's going on around them.
Yeah.
Because you can't know anything about a case typically when you go on a jury, and if you do, they're going to watch you like a hawk.
Yeah, you're not going to make it through the process if you know anything about a case.
Right. This is why a lot of juries has moved out of your jurisdiction, out of your state or wherever, to get what they call a fair trial.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make yourself known in your city, assuming it's not Chicago or something like that, there's a good chance they'll never call you.
Yeah, that's true. And here's another way you can do it. And I agree with you. I don't think people who care.
That sounds true. We don't know.
Well, I believe it. But
I believe it.
But here's something else that's probably true. If you do get called and you want to get out of jury duty, just let them know that you're a fan of jury nullification. Just put that on the form. And that will be enough to have them boot you right out the door, because they don't want people who have knowledge about how their system operates. They certainly don't want people who know what jury nullification is, which it bears repeating. It's your right as a juror to decide a case based on your conscience. So in court, in criminal court, they tell you they lie. They lie to you by saying that you've got to judge the case based on the facts we present.
Right, and you have to judge it by the law.
And that's not true. If you think the law is bad, you have the right to vote not guilty, set that person free, and the idea is you are then sending a message to the government gang saying, hey, this is a bad law, get rid of it. If enough jurors... Go ahead.
My problem is they know I'd hang them all.
Oh, really? You'll hang them all?
Yeah, innocent or guilty, it wouldn't matter. I'd hang them.
What does that mean? Why would you do that?
Well, because that's just the way I am. They wouldn't be there if they weren't guilty to start with.
Huh?
This is the time they got caught.
You aren't real, but you're not being for real, right? Like, you don't actually believe that, do you?
I'm being halfway for real.
You think that hold on. You think that the government police are so smart and efficient that they always get the right guy?
Oh, absolutely not. But like I said, typically you don't go that high up unless you've already gotten away with 100 other crimes.
Haven't we all gotten away with 100 other crimes?
Absolutely. But
Okay.
Here's the thing. All you got to do is let the public know that's how you feel, and you'll stay off of every jury in the country.
Well, I agree. You don't belong on a jury if that's actually
Right,
how you
Thanks.
feel.
Bye.
Thank you for the call tonight. Jesus.
Well, I guess that's the case.
I want people who actually have a conscience to be on a jury so they can actually look at a case and say,
I think we live in a nation where far too many things are illegal.
oh, yeah. Right.
And, that's really the end of the story.
And so if you have a conscience and you are put on a case, you're not eliminated through whatever process, you're put on a case, and it's a case regarding a nonviolent crime, a consensual act. Let's say it's prostitution or drug dealing or something else, gambling,
Owning a gun,
whatever. If there's no victim, you should vote not guilty in that case. I don't care what the law says. I don't care if it's the death penalty for somebody who had a pound of marijuana or a gun or whatever it is. I don't care.
Basically, the easiest thing to say is no victim,
no crime, not guilty. Stand firm on it, too, because all it takes is one person to hang that jury and give that guy or gal a second chance. More coming up here in moments. It's Free Talk.
You will understand the true intent of the Founding Fathers when they wrote the Constitution if you attend this free webinar. Chris Ann Hall, president of Liberty First University, doesn't simply regurgitate what some professor or expert has said about the Constitution. She relays the thoughts and opinions of those who wrote the documents. Her straightforward, passionate, easy-to-understand style lets anyone grasp the principles of liberty. Join us at lfu.freetalklive.com to watch the free pre-recorded webinar. Watch now at lfu.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, inviting you to join us here. We're talking jury duty and your rights and how to handle something like jury duty. One man going to jail for 10 days because he didn't wake up on time. Judge not only sentencing him to 10 days in jail, but also 150 hours of community service and a year's probation. I mean, for people that don't understand, probation is in a lot of ways worse than jail. And I don't mean to say that it's, worse to be outside of a jailhouse. I mean, obviously it's nicer to be able to not be in jail, but
yeah, I'd rather be on probation than jail personally.
Probation is one of the most invasive sentences because there's always terms. Probation isn't just like, you're on probation. It's, you got to not have alcohol in the house, and you've got to submit to drug testing, and you've got to show up and report at the probation office once a week, and you've got to, if they want to come search your house, they can come in anytime they want with no notice. I mean, it is one of the most invasive things into one person's life, and it's the reason why so many people get what they call violations of probation. So, they come into your house to look around. Oh, what's this? It's a beer in the fridge? You're under arrest. You're going back to jail.
And often they don't even take under consideration that you've got a roommate or
Doesn't
a family
matter.
member, right?
Doesn't matter. If you've got roommates, they're also not allowed to have beers unless they're locked up in their own room under like lock and key, basically.
It's pretty accurate.
Because they can't, as I understand it, they probably can't. This isn't legal advice. Check with your lawyer. But if you've got a roommate who's got like a locked door on his room and he's got some beers in his room, theoretically, they shouldn't be able to search the roommate's room. But again, that's not legal advice. I don't know if that would actually pan out when the men with guns are in your house, and if it's not like, if you can't show on a lease that your roommate rents room A and there's an A on the room or something like that, if you can't prove that it's your roommate's room, they may be able to search it too. So probation is designed for violations. It's designed for people to easily, just by mistake, violate probation, let alone, just being sloppy. So we can go back to your calls and thoughts, and that's what we're going to do. But also, don't forget to visit our website over at freetalklive.com. That is where you can sign up for our email list, and we will email you whenever there's something that there's worth announcing about the show. Usually we do them once a week just to kind of keep in the loop with what's happening with Free Talk Live. So you can sign up for our email list on the front page over at freetalklive.com. And we go back to your phone calls and thoughts here. Mike is in Gold Bar, Washington, listening to KBKW out of Aberdeen. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, you guys.
Hey, welcome.
On the jury duty, I've always managed to not have a vehicle. My vision is too bad. I've always gotten out of jury duty, and I think I've got those letters like 3 times in Washington State. But I've noticed that some people, I think they think they're going to go on a Perry Mason show or something, and they can't wait to go on jury duty. They just can't wait, and they're all gung ho to go and not get paid at work for a couple of weeks. But the thing is, if you're going to sign up for that BS, I like to call it, especially on the no victim thing, because then I think if you're going to do that and then cost the other idiot taxpayers money by not showing up and disrupting the process, then I think you should. I think that guy's fine's way excessive, but I think he should have at least been reprimanded or something like that. And a lot of, and I got a 2-year probation one time for mowing my lawn.
What?
I threatened a boyfriend living at the beach in Anacortes, Washington, a beautiful life with money, and I threatened a boyfriend and my ex went immediately and crying on the judge's shoulder for protection and all this stuff. And I went and mowed the lawn one day and I got arrested. I went and picked up my junk mail another day, and my ex was a surveyor and had a 300-foot tape. And the second time I was 296 feet away from my wife, and I got arrested.
So you're saying when you said you mowed the lawn, you violated a protection order?
I went and mowed my lawn. I had a lawn company, and my wife's grandma died, and we bought the house from her. She gave me the house basically because she loved me. And I went and mowed the lawn for the funeral when I wasn't supposed to, because I had all the stuff in my lawn company up there, and her friend got me arrested. And the whole thing cost me $7,500. I should have just went to jail for a week or two, but it cost me $7,500. 2 years I couldn't leave the state of Washington, own a gun, anything.
Right.
So I really hate the system, and I think if you're going to involve yourself in it, then that's what happens. Then
hold on, before you go on, Mike, I'm curious, Mark, because we didn't get too deep into the story. Did it say whether the gentleman who was arrested had already been selected for jury duty or was going to the jury selection process?
He was in the selection process, as I understand it, not actually sitting on a jury.
Right. So
that's different then. That's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
Because there's dozens of people.
You know what? I pre-read this story and I got it wrong. It is
he was selected?
Yeah, he said he was picked to serve as a juror on a civil case and was told to return the following day at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And he missed his alarm at 11.
Yeah, I mean, that's then in that case.
Can I say something to Mark?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, real quick. You mentioned the TED Talk video the other day.
Which TED Talk are we referring to?
What you think you know about addiction?
Oh, gosh.
That one?
I don't know.
Well, it was on YouTube. I saw it on YouTube. It was recent. It's called Everything You Thought You Knew About Addiction, But You Were Wrong.
That might be nobody who was talking about that one. But
maybe it was. Anyway, it was a very, very, very awesome thing. And I just wondered if any of you have been in trouble and had to go to an assessment for a drug or alcohol issue. Have you ever known anybody to not go to an assessment and not end up in some treatment, something, no matter what the crime was?
Yeah, so it's like asking a psychiatrist. It's like asking a psychiatrist, do I need mental health work? When you go into a drug treatment professional's
they're
office,
going to find a problem.
And basically, unless you say, I have a glass of wine every other week, while I watch the football game or something, they're going to basically say you have a problem. I've literally heard a drug treatment professional, literally heard them on more than one occasion say it is possible to be an alcoholic and only drink once a year. So, I don't know how you can rectify those two things. I mean, let's say you really tie one on every single New Year's Eve, amateur night, as they call it, right? The drinkers call it amateur night. And every New Year's Eve, you go to a party, you tie one on, your significant other, and you wake up the next day, you've got a terrible hangover, all that stuff. Your significant other drives you home. There's no real consequences other than the day that you have a hangover day. The first New Year's Day, you don't go to work because you weren't going to work anyway. You're sick, and then you feel better, and life goes on. Yeah, that doesn't make you an alcoholic. It means that you're making a poor series of choices over the course of a year. But whatever.
So you would agree with? Go ahead, Mike.
I would just say on the jury thing for the guy, the treatment exactly. The jury guy. Here's how I feel: if you're going to involve yourself in the system, then you're just going to have to deal with this, whatever the system has in store for you afterwards. Then that's the choice that you take when you sign and say, "Yeah, I'm going to go to jury duty." And
no, it doesn't. Jury duty doesn't work that way. You don't just say you're going to jury duty. They pick you.
Well, you agree. He agreed. He agreed to go.
No, I mean, they will possibly come after you if you don't go.
He was under duress when he went, but I can see the point that, if you just say, hey, look, I don't want to do this, then you should be able to get out of it.
And it's never been a problem. I've always just said, I can't go. And plus, I might, if I'm one of the peers, I don't want to see one of my peers for something stupid and be part of his demise or her.
Well, no, that's where you would. That's where you would
really
do jury nullification. So if you see somebody who is going, is facing charges for something that should not be a crime, that you disagree with the law, you then set your peer free and vote not guilty. And so you would agree with me, Mike, that a few weeks in jail is preferable to a year or two on probation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I totally agree.
It is like being in jail.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks
for
guys.
the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. Because at least when you're in jail and there's no probation after it, once you're out, you're out. It's done. But with probation, it's like this thing's constantly hanging over your head, and they can get you at any time for the smallest crap. Free Talk Live. You dial toll free and bring up whatever you want. We're talking about jury duty. One man sentenced to 10 days behind bars, plus a year's probation, plus 150 hours of community service, all because he missed the first day, it sounded like, maybe, of jury duty. He had been selected for the jury, so that does mean that, they have alternates, right? So when they pick a jury, usually, like here in New Hampshire, if it's a 12-person jury here. In some states like Massachusetts, they have 6-person juries for some things. But in a 12-person jury, they always, in my experience, also have a 13th and 14th choice. And the 13th
that's true.
And the 13th and 14th
alternates.
person are supposed to be there in the event that they need to be there for some reason. Maybe somebody gets sick or sleeps in or whatever. Now, obviously, sleeping in isn't as serious as being, ill in the hospital or something like that. But does it deserve 10 days in jail, a year's probation? Does the judge need to send a message here? And I wonder, Mark, we barely scratched the surface on the story. Is there more that you wanted to share out of the news? And where was this again? Florida?
Yeah, this is out of Fort Lauderdale. I think it's worth reading this story, yes. So it says he missed his alarm. He woke up around 11 or 11:30. Mm-hmm. It was almost time to head to his afternoon job, so he didn't bother going to the courthouse or calling the bailiff. He just hoped that it would all just work out. Now, this is a young man.
21.
Yeah. And that's not a good idea, what he did.
To not call.
But I think that's something that you learn over time, not necessarily that you're going to know at 21 years old.
Well, he's probably learned it now.
At work, I was looking at my phone thinking, what's the worst case scenario that could happen? I thought maybe I'd get a fine or something like that, Somerville said in a phone interview. Somerville lives with his grandparents and helps take care of his grandfather, who recently has surgery and has trouble walking. Somerville helps him around the house and takes him to therapy and the grocery store while his grandmother's at work. He was out playing basketball when his worried grandmother called to say that there was a police officer at the door with a court summons. My grandfather said, just go in and be honest, said Somerville. I've never had a criminal background, and I've never been arrested. I've never been in handcuffs. Wow. The most I've ever gotten was a traffic ticket, so I was thinking it wouldn't be that bad. Inside the courtroom, he said the judge, this is I don't know, castor snakes? I'm not sure. Something. Okay. Castrenakes explained that Somerville's negligence delayed the court by 45 minutes.
Oh, my God. The judge in most courts takes 45 minutes to even come out from his little chambers.
Yeah, well, no doubt. They often start late because of the judge.
Yeah.
They handcuffed me in the courtroom after that, Somerville said, who spent the next 10 days in jail. He said his first jail experience wasn't scary, but he prayed daily and wrote in a notebook. When reached by phone Thursday, the judge said he's not allowed to comment on pending court matters. Somerville said that his public defender will try to...
Wow, they reached the judge by phone? How the hell do you do that?
It's a good trick. So
There's no number you can call to ring up a judge. Does the press have a special backline into his chambers?
I don't know.
These guys are protected, man. You can't just call a judge.
Well, there you go.
You could try calling their house if you know where they live. But there's no extension. You don't just dial up the court and press 1 to get the judge. It doesn't work that way. They've got people.
I need to call the Supreme Court, and I need to talk to Ruth Bader Ginsburg right now.
I mean, I'm not talking about just the Supreme Court. I'm talking district court.
How ridiculous it all is. Yeah,
some little judge. Go ahead.
Somerville said his public defender will try to lessen his probation sentence, which he called excessive.
Was it contempt? I wonder what they hit him with.
Absolutely. Contempt. That's what the judge can do, is contempt. Yeah. He showed up in contempt. Now I have a record. I almost feel as though, like a criminal now. I don't think he has a record. I mean, contempt, It's different.
It's got to be on the record.
Now I have to
jail.
explain this in every interview.
Did he lose his job is another question, because he said he had an afternoon job. He's a responsible young gentleman.
He works for the Parks and Rec department, so he works for the city, the town, the city, whatever it is. And no, I guess is best.
They didn't fire him?
Best I can tell, no.
He's lucky.
He sounds like a conscientious young man.
Yeah.
Largely, I mean, a 21-year-old sleeping late isn't the greatest crime I have heard. I would consider that pretty ordinary.
People have spent less time in jail for greater crimes than sleeping in. That's for sure.
Oh, yes. I mean, I think Jeffrey Epstein's probably a pretty good example of somebody probably spent less time for doing something far greater. He says he plans to go to school to become a firefighter. So he's a government
government worker.
Yeah, he's a government worker through and through.
Hasn't burned him yet on that.
No, but it's not gonna.
Well, it's a different department.
Firefighters are paid well.
Yeah.
As a former firefighter myself, I know how this is, and the paychecks are good. I can see why people want those jobs. 48 off, 24 on.
Well, you were a volunteer. You didn't get a paycheck.
I got a little bit for a stipend, but not a paycheck. I got a check.
You are not a professional firefighter in the traditional sense.
Nope. But I went into buildings that were on fire.
This is true.
I think that with a hose in my hand and a funny looking hat. I think that makes me a firefighter.
Yep. At a glance, you look the same. That's
right.
for sure.
Got the uniform.
Just didn't have the bennies.
Nope, they didn't. It wasn't part of the international whatever IAFF. Yeah.
So I have to wonder. Did he continue the jury service after day one? Like, did they?
I think it was all over by the sounds of the way this case went.
He missed a one day then.
Yeah.
That was it.
But the judge was miffed.
Yeah.
None to say the least.
He showed him, teaching everybody a lesson to take jury duty seriously.
I think that's part of this, and I think that it bears repeating here, is that anytime the judge sentences somebody to send a message, and I don't care what the message is. If they sentence somebody to send a message, they're sentencing someone else, because you're sentencing everybody. You're trying to say, hey, look, everybody, don't do this. Well, that's not the way the criminal justice system works. The criminal justice system is dealing with a single defendant. And if they're sentenced for any reason other than the punishment for the crime for which they have committed, then they're being over-sentenced. Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the story. I mean, really, if it was 5 days in jail, 75 hours of community service, and a half a year on probation, is anybody going to say, boy, I'd rather just sleep in 2 hours?
No, that's still excessive.
No.
Nobody should be sentenced like that for this. I mean, it's
pointless.
It's outrageous. And the judge was he was inconvenienced, the poor judge. 45 whole minutes before they could figure out what to do. They brought in an alternate juror and went ahead with the trial.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, people have posited here that it's because the young man is black that he was given a greater sentence, because I don't feel I was a young white man once, and I don't feel like they had any love for me either.
No.
Now, could it be that it's because he's male? There is evidence that women tend to be sentenced less
lighter
than men are for the same crimes.
It's hard to, say, because you don't have the ability to compare apples to apples in many cases, because the chance that this is going to happen, or that something similar is going to repeat in any fair amount of time or in a matter of years, still fairly low.
Especially by the same judge.
Right, by the same judge, that, the next time that they have a court trial, that it's a woman or a white guy or whoever that does the same thing, that misses jury duty, will the judge sentence the other person in that case to the same sentence? Maybe they would. It's hard to say, and we probably won't get to find out. So I don't think it's helpful to speculate in that way, because it doesn't matter to me what the color of the man was. He was oppressed here. This is not right. What happened to this guy, this young gentleman, was completely wrong. It was a violation of, just good being a human being. And these judges don't have to be human. They don't have to act compassionate. They get rewarded for being cold. They get rewarded for not connecting with the people that are in their stead.
Right. If the young man was thrown in jail for the night, and let out in the morning,
he'd have remembered that for sure.
Right. Yeah. And the sentence would have been over and done before anybody could have said anything.
Sure. And he wouldn't have lost a job. I mean, I'm not saying he did lose a job, but a lot of people, if they're out for 10 days, even if they were pretty good, they're going to lose their job.
Yeah. He could have very well cost this young man his job.
Right.
He could have cost it with one night in jail, too. And,
could have.
But,
less likely.
The judge could say, what days of the week do you have off?
Yeah, that's true.
And they do it all the time.
There's such a thing as weekend serving as far as if you get a relatively light sentence, you can request, hey, I got a job. Can I just do that on weekends? And sometimes they'll say yes.
They don't know that. Most people don't know that. It's just like jail. And you're just petrified and you have no idea how it's all this. So you just keep your mouth shut. It's like, what?
I've known people who've gone to weekend sentencing before.
Right. Well, the judge certainly should have looked at that. This young man has a job. He's working hard. He'd never
This
had
judge
a
was flying off the handle.
Yeah, it's crazy. And nobody's going to hold him accountable.
No, probably not. Toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Let's talk more about the courts, specifically in regards to human rights being granted to an orangutan. That apparently happened in Argentina. We talked about it like half a decade ago, Mark, when this happened. I don't know if you remember that. But that particular orangutan is back in the news, and we'll tell you why coming up here in Hour 3. It's Free Talk Live.
Chronic pain, stress and anxiety, fatigue or lack of focus, dependence on opioids or opiates? John Bush here, owner of Brave Botanicals, inviting you to try a free ounce of kratom, the controversial plant remedy the government doesn't want you to know about. Why, you ask? Well, it's big competition for Big Pharma. From grandmothers cutting Oxycontin to keep up with their grandkids, to young adults kicking Adderall and quitting drinking, more Americans are turning to Kratom to help them through the day. But the government won't stop us. When the credit card companies kicked Kratom to the curb, I accepted e-checks and crypto. When Facebook shut down my ad account, I did podcast interviews and advertised on Free Talk Live. And now to give a big F-you to the man, I'm giving away Kratom for free. To get your free ounce of Kratom, go to freeounceofkratom.com, pay $5 shipping and handling, and I'll send you a free ounce. Visit freeounceofkratom.com to claim your free ounce today. That's freeounceofkratom.com.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. You can bring up what you want. If you want to take control of the airwaves, you can do that here. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Tonight, it's Ian here.
And Mark.
Open phones as always. We've also got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm, so feel free to join one of those if you want to sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us, and that's the way I prefer you to sound. So jump on our Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. We're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. You can call about the things we've already discussed, like jury duty, for instance, or the ridiculous tax burden that Americans are facing. But coming up, the orangutan that was granted human rights in Argentina. It's back in the news. She was granted human rights back in 2014, so half a decade ago. Spent 20 years in an Argentinian zoo. Now
how can you grant something a human rights and then leave it in a zoo?
Great question. We can get into that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we go to David. He's in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Mark.
Yeah, orangutan, not tang.
It's true.
Tang is for astronauts. And thanks for that mental image, Mark. Mark with his hose in his hands again.
Well, that's firefighters are always holding their hoses.
Yeah. So you're not talking about jury duty. You're talking about bitches and sons of bitches. And what they are is tyrants. And tyrants was addressed. Our whole effing government, judges included. Oh, sure. By the way, I call judges on the telephone all the time.
How?
By calling the judges' chambers.
How?
And the second. Pardon?
How do you get that phone number?
It's in the phone book.
No, there's no way the judges' chambers are in the phone book.
Search it right now. Go on Google and pick any judge in New Mexico and search their name, and their phone number will come up.
I think their home number might come up.
Let's go on with the story.
Go ahead.
No, their chambers number will come up. I don't want to waste their time on that, but anyway, and because I talk to their assistants all the time dealing with court cases, especially when you're doing your stuff pro se. And anyway, several hundred years ago, some people that lived in our country dealt with this whole problem before, and they wrote a couple documents. One was a Declaration of Independence, meaning get the hell out of our lives, you MFers. We're done with you. Come around here. We're going to blow your brains out. That's what they said. That's what they meant. And it was
That's what
legal.
they did.
And they wrote a document. And they said they used different words. One, they said that it's human nature to suffer longer than you should have to suffer. And we've been suffering way longer than we should have to suffer this second time around. And then they went on to say that these things make you a tyrant. Okay? Death to tyrants. These things make you a tyrant. You are a tyrant. Goodbye, tyrant. We're now on our own. So they wrote that Declaration of Independence, and they didn't just write it for that one time. If you read the language in there, they wrote it as a prescription for what to do again in the future. We are now in the future. Okay?
Well, the guy who wrote it, Thomas Jefferson, the guy who wrote it, suggested that there would need to be a revolution every generation or so. So
every
about
20
every
years?
20, 25 years, there ought to be a revolution, was his theory.
Yeah. We're way overdue. And these people that are in government, they have been making use of that psychology that's right there in that document of how people will just suck it up and deal with it way longer than they should. They're making hay with that. Okay, and now the time has come. It's way overdue to nip this in the bud. And that judge with his jury duty message there is a perfect example of a tyrant. Okay,
I can't say I disagree.
I
can't say I disagree. Although I don't think violence is the solution to problems.
Violence is the answer.
I disagree with that.
Well,
no, it does not.
Right.
That makes you no different from them in that case. And thank you for the call tonight, David. If that is what you live by, the idea that violence is the answer and might makes right, that just makes you a wannabe tyrant. That just means you're somebody who
I don't
isn't.
think that's necessarily true. So you could just want to be free and believe that violence is the solution to it. But the reality is this is an organization that's claimed for itself a monopoly privilege on using violence in a given landmass. That's what a government is. That's the definition of it. Like the end of story. That's the definition of the government. Organization that claims a monopoly privilege over the use of violence in a given landmass. So when you say that might makes right, you say that they're right, the government, because they're mightier than you are. And that's the problem.
True. That's not
now,
true.
If you can
They're
get
not
enough
right.
people together, then you can then become right by being mightier than they. And that's possible, but it's becoming less and less possible over time. So in her book, their book, two college professors, but I remember the one, Erica Chenoweth.
Yep, we interviewed
her. Civil Resistance. They pointed out that not only is nonviolent protest more effective against the government, and they showed it. It's social scientists doing social science. They showed that it's more effective, but that it's also that violence is getting less effective and that civil resistance is getting more effective. So I would say no, you don't want to be in a shooting match with these folks because recent history, just the last 10 years, go look at the stories. There's all kinds of single guys out there that got so mad they were willing to pick up a gun to solve this problem.
Well, people like that are as frustrated as David are, they don't want to do it alone. I mean, the reason why he's on the air yelling about
12 people, what's the point?
Well, right. But the reason why he's on the air yelling about it is he wants to whip up fervor into other people to do the same thing, to use violence, to pick up the means of violence and become the state effectively. Because if if you manage to successfully overthrow the state, which would be quite a task to do in a violent means, because you'd have to go up against not only the police, but probably, the National Guard and probably the military, and anybody else who might pick up arms to defend the state in their brainwashed ways.
You would also be taking on a whole bunch of people that were working with you that had a whole variety of different goals. Maybe they just want to get rid of, this jury system that we have. Just a whole variety of different things that they might be complaining about.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to the Republican convention. You were just at the Republican meeting today, Ian.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Do they all agree? You're a Republican. You're the chairman of the Keene Republican Party. Do they agree with you?
Oh, I didn't say anything about the things I disagreed with today, and I would have disagreed with a lot.
Right. I mean, like whole bunches of things that you disagree with them on, and, that's just the way it is. People have to work together, and that's...
Right. So if you embrace violence as your tool, then, in my opinion, you are essentially becoming the thing that you hate, because you are no better than them at that point. Yeah, you can argue that you're defending yourself. Okay, fine. But at what point does defending yourself become using aggression? At what point do you cross that threshold from, oh, well, I'm just trying to protect my lifestyle and my freedom, to I'm now crushing the life out of my opposition because they're on the other side? And I think there's probably not a real clear line when it comes to that.
I think it's a very difficult thing. I mean, people tend to think in groups, and whether, even people that want to not think in groups tend to think in groups, and that makes it difficult to, do any of this stuff.
See, here's the thing. It's all, and I touched on this on an earlier show, I think this week, that it's all about numbers. So in order to have your violent revolution, you're going to need to have some numbers. It's not just going to be you and your little, 12-person militia or whatever.
Don't worry, you're not going to have your nonviolent revolution without some numbers either.
That's the point I'm trying to make here, is in order to have a violent revolution, you would need to have significant numbers of people who are willing to do violence. It's hard to find those numbers. If you have a large group of people, then you can be effective by doing the nonviolent things like Erica Chenoweth was, talking about. It could be as simple as not showing up to court. It could be as simple as not paying taxes. It could be as simple as not obeying all the dumb government regulations, just ignoring the state. If you have enough people and they just ignore the state, there's very little that the state could do about that. They can't lock you all up. There's not right now. If you go to the Cheshire County Jail, it's probably close to full. Generally, at any given time, it's going to be 80, 90, 100% capacity. They don't know what to do with massive numbers of people who are non-cooperating with them. 855-450 free like freedom. It's free. It's Free Talk Live, and we invite you to join us here, live Saturday edition of the show. The toll-free number for you is 855-450 free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm, and that is where you can call in and sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us. Good nutrition is key to looking and feeling great, but eating right all the time can be a challenge, especially when travel and work schedules get in the way, and they do a lot. Or maybe you just don't have the desire or time to shop and cook the right foods. Well, Balance of Nature has a solution for you. With just 3 of the Balance of Nature fruit capsules and 3 of their vegetable capsules, you get 10 servings of fruits and vegetables, and that's a lot of nutrition.
I took my 3 fruits and 3 veggies today, as a matter of fact.
You can go online and become a preferred customer, which gives you the best pricing and free shipping. And then after your 3rd month, Balance of Nature will ship to you at no charge an additional set of fruits and veggies. It's a limited-time offer, so don't wait. Just go to balanceofnature.com. Use discount code FTL to get the deal. That's code FTL like Free Talk Live at balanceofnature.com. So we continue with your calls and thoughts. Let's see. Coming up, we'll talk about the orangutan with human rights. But first... or supposedly. First, we go to Tom in New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Tom.
A woman in the United Kingdom, a United States diplomat's wife, was suspected in a deadly hit-and-run crash in the United Kingdom. A 19-year-old man was killed, and they tracked it down. They say that the suspect is the wife of a U.S. diplomat over there.
Was she drunk?
And she left the United Kingdom and returned, I guess, to the United States, And now there's some outcry over there. Hey, they want her to be brought to justice. Now, the way these things work, I remember another case where a Vatican ambassador to the Dominican Republic was prosecuted for taking liberties with children in the Dominican Republic, and he had diplomatic immunity, but the Vatican prosecuted him under Vatican law. Okay, because when you're an ambassador or you're a diplomat, you're under the laws of the country that you're from, and that's what diplomatic immunity is. And the odd thing about this is, what if the United States government decides to prosecute her under United States laws?
What are the odds that'll happen, though? I mean, she's one of their people.
But if she committed a crime like that in the United Kingdom, then they say, okay, well, she was under U.S. laws. Under U.S. laws, which side of the road do you drive on?
Okay.
It was legal under U.S. law to be driving on that side of the road.
Assuming that that's how the accident went down. I don't know the specifics of this particular case, but
I was just bringing that point up.
It's an interesting point, Tom.
How about
I would like to point out, Tom, I mean, you and I agree that the world should go to the metric system. And by the world, I mean the United States, because it's the only Stone Age place it still has.
What about Canada?
They have the metric system.
Do they?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can go up there, buy yourself a liter of gas.
Okay.
Yeah, and go and find out how many kilometers per hour it will take you. Yeah.
I guess I don't remember that from being in Canada. I don't remember gas being sold by the liter.
Didn't you go to Canada to smoke a bunch of pot?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why.
But I drove while I was up there. We drove across from Toronto to Vermont.
Pot.
Huh?
You shouldn't have been driving after smoking pot.
Well, I'm not admitting to have done that.
Hopefully, I believe that the hotel was very, very close to this place that they went. Nonetheless,
which raises another thing about this.
But Tom, the point I want to make is don't you also agree that the whole world should drive on a particular side of the road? Like,
no, I think it ought to be, whichever side is what they use over there. But now,
let's make it uniform.
What about if there's a subway line that runs underneath an embassy? Now, in March of 2002, there was a subway bombing by terrorists in Madrid, and the subway bomb blew up, and a bunch of people got killed. But what if the subway line runs underneath an embassy, and the bomb happens to blow up? What doesn't do any damage to the embassy, but you know how those lines on the map?
Right, they suggest that the embassy is foreign land. So,
but how far down is the embassy?
Underneath, I know, but
I'm going to have to say that as a judge, this isn't difficult. In the United States, if you find there's all these mineral rights, right? So the embassy can't just start mining, pumping oil out of the ground or whatever, wherever it is. It only owns, a few feet deep.
Thank you for the call tonight, Tom.
That's what I would say as a judge.
Well, right, and that is one of those, kind of libertarian property rights questions: is how far above and below do your house, if you own
property rights go,
right? Yeah, how
because the planes aren't paying me to fly over my place.
No, and they never will, and no one would say. I mean, almost no one would say that you own forever up, eternally. It never stops.
Right. My property's just flipping around the sun and whipping around the universe.
Doesn't make sense. So I think the best argument that I've heard is that whatever you homestead in that particular case. So if you put an antenna tower up, then people should not run into it. If you're digging under the ground, you dig a well, then that's probably yours too. But beyond that, arguably it's not yours. And I think that there would have to be court cases to decide things like that. And
well water is an interesting question because you're digging down and you're taking water, and the water that you're getting isn't water that was underneath your land.
Once you remove water from it, more water comes into its place.
Right. It just keeps on getting pumped out. And it's the same with sort of like a creek that goes through your land. Can you just suck all that water up and, I don't know, do things with it, make ice cubes? I don't know what you do with it.
We got the Vaginitarian on the line. She's on our Discord call-in line rooms. Go ahead. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I have a bit of a controversial topic.
Oh, good.
Ruh-roh.
So I know that
Uh-oh.
transgender serving is oral topic. Is what you think this social...
Okay, I'm going to put you on hold because there's something wrong with you. Your packets are coming real slow. I don't know if it's maybe you got something going in your upload, or something might be eating up some of your bandwidth.
Normally, it's about transgendered people.
Yeah, well, and then people have real strong opinions about that. So I do want to find out what it is. Normally, Discord's pretty rock solid. It looks like we've got a good connection, so we'll see if we can iron that out here in just a moment. Vaginitarian always has good calls, so I'm looking forward to that. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. You can bring up whatever you want. Plus, the orangutan. I'm so used to saying orangutan.
I like orangutan better,
but David is right about it. It's not spelled with a G.
Written that way, but it's a foreign word.
Orangutan.
And you go to Southeast Asia, you try to pronounce it gets a little complicated.
So the orangutan that has so-called human rights, according to an Argentinian court, is moving to the United States. We'll tell you about that coming up here in moments. Your calls and thoughts are also welcome. Our number for you, if you want to join the show, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, the Discord call-in line rooms, which is where we've got Vaginitarian. You can join the Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. Get the Discord app, install it on your favorite device. Get connected with us there. It's discord.lrn.fm. This is Free Talk Live. More coming up. The live Saturday. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. Local.bitcoin.com. It's Free Talk Live Saturday edition of the show. We're inviting you to join us. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We have the Discord call-in line rooms at discord.lrn.fm. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Mark.
And also, don't forget, you can go to freetalklive.com and you can enjoy all kinds of cool features. We've got webcams. We're actually streaming on 3 different video platforms. We've got a lower resolution stream on our YouTube over at youtube.freetalklive.com. We got kind of like a mid-level stream on our Twitch feed over at twitch.freetalklive.com, and an HD quality stream on DLive at dlive.freetalklive.com. You can go to either or any of those and watch us for free. You don't have to pay. Some of these talk shows want you to pay to watch ugly talk show hosts on video. Why would anyone want to pay for that? We do it free.
I'm wearing a suit today. I don't know about you.
You're looking sharp.
Thank you.
So,
it's not a suit. It's a sport jacket.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. It looks fancy. So anyway, you can join us on any of those platforms, and if you're on DLive or Twitch, please hit the follow button and follow our channel there, and then you'll get notifications if you've got the app, because there's like a DLive app and there's a Twitch app. You'll get a notification whenever we go live, which is a nice feature to have to remind you that, hey, we're out here, and you can watch the show live. Of course, you can also watch them later on in archival format if you're unable to tune in live. We're going to go to your calls and thoughts here. I did check with Vaginitarian there during the break, and it sounds like she's cleared it up. She got on a different internet connection, so hopefully this will work. You were calling about, you said something controversial. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. Yeah, hopefully this works better. But I was calling about transgender serving in the military, which is allowed. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious what we think the socially acceptable situation is when you have a male to female transitioning service member who still who's pre-op, let's say, but wants to live in female barracks or female housing.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, I mean, you've been in the military, haven't you?
Yes.
Did this have to be dealt with while you were there at all?
I may be encountering it soon, but
oh wait, you're currently in the military?
Like National Guard?
Yes. No.
Yes,
you're active.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So you yeah.
I'm just curious. I personally don't really have a problem with it. I'm very open, of course, that people being allowed to do with their own bodies what they choose.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be. I think the question should be allowed to be asked. I don't think it should be, of course, not government mandated and certainly not mandated by the military, but it is the military. So I sort of see that happening where they'll say, we've decreed that it's okay. So regardless of where they are in their transition and regardless of where they want, whether, because a lot of transgender people don't ever go through with the operation and that's their choice, but they may mandate that, you know, they're going to live together because she identifies as a female, and I'm okay with her identifying as a female, but I think it might be one of those black and gray areas.
Yeah, let me ask some questions. So are we talking, I presume we're talking about the Army where they have, in many cases, these multi-person rooms, right?
All the branches have rooms.
Yes, but do they have multi-person rooms? So,
yes.
Okay, so there's
all
more
of
than,
them do.
Like with bunk beds or something like that? That's what you see in the movies, at least.
Right. All branches have rooms like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now the question I would have is because my mind always harkens back to a couple of situations. High school, taking showers together. Like, I don't mean like rubbing each other's back or anything like that, but you know, there's a bunch of spigots in the wall and they're spraying water out, and you go find one and you wash up and then you get back in, you know, go back to class or whatever. And then also I worked at a gym for a couple of years, and I never did walk into the women's locker room. Don't know what it was like in there, but I can tell you what it was like in the men's locker room. Mm-hmm. And in the men's locker room, although we had private showers, many people acted like we didn't. And by that I mean they'd wander out into the middle of the locker room area completely buck naked with a pair of flip-flops on and have a chat with their friend who's completely buck naked. You know, pop a leg up onto the bench and like air them out while you're.
I don't see what the problem is with that.
I'm not claiming that there's a problem. Right. I'm claiming that this is not. I'll bet you this doesn't happen in the ladies' room, right? I'll bet you the ladies aren't in there just buck naked, wandering around, chatting about the day's news. What
is it like, Vaginitarian? Have you ever been in these situations with women?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in boot camp, they're not private showers. It's a group shower, and everybody's in there naked together. And I mean, women walk around naked too. We're just as comfortable as men doing that.
Okay.
You were wrong, Mark.
Wait
a minute. Just not everybody's comfortable with this. Okay, that's why this is a question, right? That's why this is a controversy, because some people aren't comfortable with seeing other people naked, and I think that's really where the problem comes from, because some people believe that nudity is inherently sexual, and I don't necessarily agree with that statement, but I can't, they have a different viewpoint.
I'd be a little surprised, though, if a young lady decides to wander into the, men's locker room, undress, and then walk naked to the shower with her towel over her shoulder. That would surprise me.
It would be surprising.
I'd probably keep an eye on her and make sure that everything worked out exactly as she hoped, as opposed to something bad happening in this shower.
That's the reason why you're keeping an eye on her, huh?
I'd also see what's going on. Nothing wrong with looking. But, I'd be a little concerned for her safety. So safety's an issue in these circumstances.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's I think being transgender isn't quite to the level where you can't not have a awkward conversation about it and bring up questions like this. Like, it's not like someone saying, "Oh, hi, I'm a lesbian. I'm going to come live in the female barracks." It's very socially acceptable these days. But to say I'm pre-op transgender, are you okay with me walking around in my boxer shorts? But I think it starts to get very blurry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, at what point do we handle, at what point do we just say, no, I'm sorry, you're going to have to, do this other thing?
Well, and the other problem here is with the military, it's not like you're just free to say, oh, you're going to let this person walk around? That makes me uncomfortable. I quit. You don't have that option. So the policy in this case is more, it's more affecting people who feel offended in these circumstances and who don't have the freedom to just say, well, never mind, I won't be working here anymore. If you want to have this trans person in here, you won't have me in your service. I'm leaving. You can't do that because they'll, put you in the brig. at that point.
Maybe.
No, and I think it affects her too, because say she's more comfortable with women because that's what she's transitioning to. She certainly doesn't want to have to go live in male barracks because she has decided not to have the operation or hasn't had it yet. And it would be just as uncomfortable of a situation to throw her in with the men still.
Right.
So it sort of leaves her on her own. And I don't know that there's a clear answer.
And this
to
is
it,
one of the
especially
problems with trans in the military. I don't have a problem with saying it. It's a problem.
It brings issues to the
issues to the forefront that you wouldn't have to deal with otherwise. And I, as the taxpayer, should not be responsible for building their own little huts for each one of these people to live in. We got this worked out until y'all decided to switch things up on us.
Yeah, that's why I said it was controversial at the beginning of the call. It's not an easy topic.
It's a good one, though. Thank you for sharing it and bringing
I'd like to hear Aria, our transgendered host, talk about this.
Yeah, me too. She'll be on Monday, I believe. So you're welcome to bring it up then. Vaginitarian, thank you for your call here tonight. She's there on our Discord server. And you can go there. Maybe you liked her call. You can actually send her a tip on our Discord through the new tip bot there with our cryptocurrency tip bot. I shouldn't say ours. We don't know who programs the thing. It could be an exit scam, so keep that in mind.
As I understand, there is some tipping going on for callers.
Yes, there should be.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Right. If you call, you get money, basically. I mean, people will throw money at you.
That would be voluntary on the part of the people in the chat room. I wouldn't say there's any guarantee you're going to get tipped. If you've got a good call, you're more likely to get a tip out of somebody.
But
that's
they're
in the
throwing
chat room.
change at people who make calls.
It's happened. It has happened over on our Discord server at discord.lrn.fm. Coming up, we have more of your calls on the line, and if we get the chance, the orangutan. If not, I want to hold that story because it's an interesting one. We'll definitely talk about it at some point. There's more coming up here. You can join us in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are coming up next. Free Talk Live. Dial toll free. We got time for you right now. If you get on the line, we'll probably be able to get you in here. 855-450-FREE is our number. That's 855-450-3733. And don't forget, if you support what we do here on Free Talk Live, well, there's different ways to support Free Talk Live. Obviously, just listening to the show, we appreciate that. Following us on various social media like twitter.freetalklive.com or telegram.freetalklive.com or toot.freetalklive.com. Those are our social media platforms. But also, more importantly, to become a Free Talk Live amplifier like Scott has done. He is a gold amplifier, which means Scott is contributing $10 a month to the Free Talk Live AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And that is where you can go to get behind what we do here and help us get on more radio stations. We've got over 200 stations that carry the show at various times throughout the week, and that's not too shabby. Definitely appreciate being on all those stations, but we could be on 300. We could be on 400. It just takes time. It takes money. It takes effort. And that's what the AMP program is designed to do, is to help fund the effort of expanding Free Talk Live so more people can hear about the ideas of freedom, which they just don't tend to hear in most places on the radio. So if you want to help us with that and get some cool perks and some benefits, like on our Discord server, where you'll be given access to our supporters-only chat rooms there, where you can interact with other amplifiers over at amp.freetalklive.com. That's where you get signed up. You can use credit card, you can use PayPal, you can use Bitcoin, BTC. It's amp.freetalklive.com. And again, thanks to Scott for being a gold amplifier, doing double what we ask. We only ask for 5. He's doing 10. Thanks, Scott. More coming up here with your calls. Olivia, to start them out here in Arizona, watching us on YouTube. Go ahead, Olivia.
Hey, Ian and Mark. It's been such a good show today.
Thanks.
I don't really even have anything to add. I mean, you can't top that. But I did want to ask, since you brought up animals, I've got to ask about the chapel cat, the little cat running around in the background.
There is not unless there's a cat that snuck into the house. I don't
have a cat right now.
Not today, but like you used to have an orange cat.
Oh,
wow,
this
you've
goes
been listening a long time.
Yeah, this goes way back. I probably haven't had a cat in this house for, well, I guess Renee had a kitty for a period of time. So 3 years maybe? Yeah, 2 or 3 years. Yeah, Renee moved out and she, took the cat with her. But there's a beautiful brown dog here named Jazzy, and she's been with us from pretty much the beginning. I mean, since back in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about Jazzy.
Well, I just think she's the most splendid thing. Jazzy is what we call a Florida brown dog, and she looks a lot like a dingo. I could actually, her camera's not set up right now, so I can't really point it at her.
She's
the moment,
a mutt, but nonetheless, she's a lovable mutt. And you did her DNA recently.
I did.
What was that? What did it come out to?
She came out to
a lot of Rottweilers.
Several different things. There was some Akita in there. There was Rottweiler. I don't remember.
I won't hold that Akita part against her
off the top of my head. But it doesn't matter to me what she's made up of.
She's a very good girl.
Yeah, she's been well trained.
She used to be very good. Now she's retired.
She barks at you.
Yeah,
she barks at you now.
She can get away with whatever she wants now. I'll tell you about my dog too. We recently got a dog, and I don't know whether you want to use the term rescue, Olivia. You can decide that. I'll let you determine whether he's a rescue or not. But he's a show dog, but he was kind of stuck in a kennel. The people that had him, they're interested in whether or not they're interested in when he's being shown, but not really interested in him otherwise. He's more like livestock for showing. And to me, it just didn't make any sense to have a dog sitting in a kennel that could be with a family. And so we took him for a little while, and turns out he's a very good boy. He had a few accidents in the house because he hadn't lived in the house for the first 16 months. So by a few, I mean 3. And he figured it out very quickly. And now he responds to voice commands. I walk him down the street twice a day to get him to, do the things that he was otherwise doing in the house. We don't have a fenced-in yard, so I've got to take him for a walk. I take him off the leash, just let him run down this particular road. It's a dead end, so it has very few cars on it regularly. And we've got him his own name, and he's got his own dietary preferences, and he's doing very good. His name's Heimdall because he is a red Doberman, so he's got pointy things on top of his head. He's got kind of light-colored eyes like Heimdall in the movies, and it's his job to guard the door. So, and he does that quite well.
That is awesome. Oh, my gosh. And, yes, I totally do think that is a rescue. Like dogs, I don't know too many mammals that were designed to stay bored in a cage forever. That's horrible. I know somebody like that, and I just want to throw up every time I even think about it.
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
I don't like it. And, by the way, I don't think he's going to do very well on the show circuit. He's getting out for the second time here in October, and so that's part of the deal. I have to let him go when the time comes, and I shudder to think what kind of behavioral patterns are going to be set in those 3 weeks. But nonetheless, I think we're going to get him back, and I don't think he's going to do very well because he's got one thing that kind of is going to make a judge upset if they see it. You look at him and you're going to say, that's a handsome boy. And he is certainly a very good-looking dog. He's got his feet kind of toe out, so he's kind of duck-footed in front. And it's not going to be considered acceptable. It's a bone structure issue, and I don't think he's going to go anywhere personally. And that's fine by me. If they decide not to show him, then snip, snip, those little problems that he carries between his legs are going to be taken care of, and he's going to be my good boy that stays at home.
Oh, that's wonderful. Give Jazzy and Heimdall puppy kisses from me.
All right, Olivia. I did put her on the cam, so thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate it. If you're watching our cam feed, you can see Jazzy there.
Everybody loves talking about their dogs, but I don't think it's the best radio.
But I do say that the DNA test is an interesting thing. They're going to go probably running $130.
You know what we should do? We should do a DNA test on Heimdall. I mean, this is a dog that has all of his papers. And not tell them anything. And I'm curious if it would come back
a purebred
Doberman.
Good question.
Because, Dobermans aren't exactly purebred. I mean, all breeds come from other breeds, right?
Yeah,
is it going to come back in part, Rottweiler? I don't know. Weimaraner? I don't know how they made a Doberman, but somebody in Germany did.
That's a good question. There's, I think, is it 1 or 2? The company that I went with is called Embark, EMBARK. Yeah.
Okay.
And, it's just like a human DNA test. You swab the inside of the dog's mouth and put it in a little sealed container and send it off. And then a few weeks later, you get the results, and you can, click in and see what the history of these different dogs. So Jazzy's mostly Rottweiler, not mostly, but 33%. And then Pit Bull Terrier, Chow Chow, Akita, German Shepherd, Collie, and then what they call a super mutt, where they say there may be small amounts of DNA from some very distant ancestors. So she's a mix of all kind of stuff.
She's a mutt
in that case. But she looks a lot like a dingo. A lot.
Yeah, that's what you thought for a long time, and you really didn't want to let that go. And I mean, I really agreed with you. I thought you had had guessed what she was. Yeah, I do think that people would be interested in seeing what a purebred would come up with. So if you think it's a great idea, go to the Discord lines, go discord.freetalklive.com and put it in the chat there. Maybe tag me or tell somebody else to tag me, whatever. And also, if you go to facebook.freetalklive.com and you're an amplifier, amplifiers is who I'm interested in hearing from here. So amp.freetalklive.com.
Well, we're going to hear from Uncle Sam. He's on the line calling us from D.C., watching on Twitch. Go ahead, Uncle Sam.
Good evening.
Huh?
LRN.FM.
Simple rules for you, sir. So, let's see here. Since we're talking about animals, the orangutan, Mark. We're not going to be able to get deep into this story here, but she is an orangutan. Her name is Sandra, and she won a landmark appeal back in 2014 in an Argentine zoo, where they found that she is the first, quote, non-human person, if that makes any sense. Welcome to legal terms. Non-human person with the right to liberty. The 33-year-old arrived in Kansas.
How do you give like a primate that can rip people's arms off the right to liberty? Go ahead.
Well, she's now in the United States. She arrived in Kansas recently and will undergo tests before moving to her new home in Florida. Judge Elena Liberatori, who has a picture of Sandra in her office, told the AP News she wanted her ruling to send a message, quote, that animals are sentient beings and that the first right they have is our obligation to respect them. She was born in an East German zoo, then sold to Buenos Aires in 1995. The orangutan spent much of her life in a solitary enclosure and regularly tried to avoid the public. She had a daughter in 1999, but the baby was taken away from her and then sold to an animal park in China. Her legal victory brought international fame to the orangutan and set a precedent for apes to be legally deemed people rather than property. And now, let's see, until this week, nearly 5 years later, Sandra remained at the zoo. So despite having her right to liberty, she stayed right where she was in that case. Is anything going to change for Sandra when she moves to the United States? Is she still going to have
rights?
Human rights here?
I think Coco the gorilla should have had rights. That animal could talk, and there's quite a few of them that could talk. If you can claim your rights, you've got them.
That's a great point. Opinion. We'll see you tomorrow night online. In the meantime, you can join us at freetalklive.com.
Divvy is crypto made easy. Anyone can use Divvy to securely and seamlessly spend, earn, store, or exchange digital money, the US dollar, and euros. Divvy is fast. Transactions happen in seconds with fewer fees. While other altcoins are languishing, the Divvy price has risen substantially against BTC. Now's the time to make a switch to Divvy or make your start with cryptocurrency with Divvy. Visit DivvyProject.org. Divvy is crypto made easy. Plus one-click masternodes. DivvyProject.org. Again, DivvyProject.org.
You're not a wild animal, and you shouldn't be tagged and tracked like one. Where you go and what you do every minute of the day, tracked and recorded by your mobile phone, is often more revealing than your browser history. And tech companies make a fortune selling your location history without your consent. Go Dark Bags prevent location tracking and protect your privacy by instantly blocking all cell phone, GPS, and Wi-Fi signals to your mobile device. Plus, they're durable, water-resistant, and built for a lifetime of protection. Visit GoDarkBags.com/FTL. That's GoDarkBags.com/FTL.